Well, hello and welcome to our conversations here at Reditia from Mindful Being, all the way from the USA, New York, and me from the rainy London here, all the way in the UK, most famous island of Europe. And so I know that you have like some ideas for where the conversation topic you want to guide through, and it's linked. Just to recap, we started talking about the importance of our relationship, how we somehow establish practice among us, where we have been giving each other the space and the life to come back together and discover a subject that is the main point of your book, Love, which you're going to be launching, and that you have already a lot of prep for everyone to enjoy. And then we talk about this idea of how we work in relationships, when the way that we factor or we factory for our relationship may be very different. How we create a space where we resist the resistance of pushing things away, and we invite conversations that may or may not happen in our own terms, but they are necessarily to move forward. And I think pretty much highlighting all that as a recap, give entrance to where you want to take us today.
Great recap. And actually what really came up for me, and I think it really embodies all the discussions we have outside of this conversation, right? Because obviously whatever we're discussing here is fueled by our actual life experiences and how we operate. This is not just put together for you to enjoy, but it's also for us, as you just described so beautifully, for us to process certain things. And I think it's really to demonstrate that life is an up and down and figuring out new direction, switching there and this. And I think the real important part is to have people in your court, in your environment, that can move with you, and they don't just drop you because now you don't fit into what you were serving me in the first place, and becomes this self-centered path. It's like, oh, you're here for me to help me, and yeah, I'll help you to a certain extent, but once it gets too uncomfortable for me, I'm out. Bye, you'll be on your own, go figure, right? And I think it's what I'm noticing, and especially what you were saying, is that we're focusing not so much on my experience, your experience, but that space that where we meet each other, and to allow, the space to evolve without our personal experience to be overflowing. Because what I've experienced, if we come together with two people that might not have the awareness, maybe one person has more of an awareness than the other person, let's say, it's just we're not meeting eye to eye. And that is not to say that, oh, I have to leave this relationship. I think this is another piece where a lot of times we just turn our backs because it gets uncomfortable, because it doesn't serve us. And I feel like I really would love to explore how do you go about situations when you don't see eye to eye, when things don't work out, when we can't talk about it and we're getting it. Because I had a few of those situations just in a brief period of time since we spoke last time, where this came up. And what really came through for me is that's when I have to step even further into my own practice and remind myself not to get caught up by what has been said, and be careful and mindful and compassionate and kind towards the other person, as well as taking care of myself at the same time. And I think that's what most people are struggling with, because they feel like it's either or. It's either taking care of myself or being there for you. And I think this is really the hard stuff. That is really difficult, to be able to be there for both things at the same time. Noticing, oh, I need to take care of myself, and yet there is something happening right now in front of me with this person that I can't just turn away and turn my back towards, because that will do something hurtful sometimes to the person in front of us or even towards ourselves. So to acknowledge what is really happening in these moments, and maybe, we're going there to explore, like, what are certain ways we can operate in that space? What is it that we need to do if we are the one that is aware or not aware? How do we, go about those? Because we're always going to be the one, we're not always going to be the aware one. Sometimes we are the one that don't even notice anything. And we just had that conversation the other day. It's like, well, if you don't tell me, I don't know. As aware as I may be, I don't know what you need sometimes. And I think it really becomes this self-awareness of like knowing and not knowing.
Okay, so let me unpack all the beautifully stuff you have landed there, so we can just create a little bit of a structure for anyone that may be watching us, or even for ourselves. I think, like, first thing first, we need to enter life with a very different perspective. At least I'm doing this from now on in my living, which is life is uncomfortable. I live with a lot of uncomfortable thoughts, ideas, environment, weather, economy, desires, things I want to fulfill. They are part of, like, the steps, like those steps you do in the morning. These are the things that we have every day, and then we do the practice with them. We go up, we go down, but that's kind of like how it is. Then taking it to the social, what is really happened is that there's been a massive change. Like, I would call it the industrialization of relationships. And I say this because, to me, it really feels like how it must feel the first time they put a train track running through America and bringing things. So suddenly we have destroyed the sense of family. We have given a completely different dimension to the possibilities of our lives, to nomadic living, to working from home, to be on our own, to learning how to be on our own in a good way. Because I think this is what you said to me yesterday, you wanted to bring up, like, how when we get used to be alone, then it's harder for us to relate to other people. And this was in relationship with an elderly person, but I think nowadays it can be to anyone. It could be to a teenager or even a younger child who decided to enclose themselves in the video games and not getting out. So this is more available because the demands to maintain the discomfort of life are becoming more abstract. We don't have to worry about bringing current water to the house. We don't have to worry about, like, keep the house warm, or bringing food, or our parents, not taking care of us. More of well, some people, unfortunately, yes, but more of those things have been, compared to the even 100 years or even less, they have really massively changed. So once we know and we are aware of that, then we had to be humble enough to know that we are not know what this new language is. And there's the son of us, because this was also marked by the universe, and how, like, there was a lot of people, like, starting last year, that they were going to be like kind of like spiritual warriors, for the earth, in many angles, from corporations to companies to like enterprises, entrepreneur. People want to now do or take a little bit of the weight in relationship with they can do for a wider, even if it's consuming and making profit, but there's a change too on that. So we care about how we relate to another, how we are perceived, and how we are judged by other people. So that just gives us more like a reason why attending to these sort of fuse elements that will come as we're going up the steps, as we climb in our a load of work, loads of emotional charge, like is anyone around us being sick? Do we have kids? Do we have people that depend? Are we, being accountable to ourselves to do the very things that will keep us going, like our health, our sleep, our drinking water, things that, are essential for the machinery to be working. And then when it comes to this space in where we have to interact with other people, I would say it's going to be very crucial, at least, and I speak for myself, for me to separate from where I feel tracting towards my conditional pattern of attachment. Okay, so for example, I've been talking to this person for a very long time. It's someone I have, and I was talking to my mom about it because it's someone I met 6 months, and it's a new relationship. Is most happening over the telephone, like even if we met like in person and whatever. But yesterday, they were doing something for me for that they did voluntarily, like change my website. And actually, when they changed my website, they didn't put an action button, and then it took 3 months. They completely disengaged from doing it, and the mobile wasn't right. And I've been asking and waiting, and maybe because of all my own things, I didn't focus. And then I realized, as it's building up, I'm missing clients from getting bookings, because when I'm working, I can. So it has an effect on me. So I was actually quite pissed off within right. Yeah. So when I get to speak to him yesterday, instead of like doing that, he has a very old prototype of not taking responsibility and a very clever way of surviving, which he was like turning a negative into myself. So he say, oh, when are you going to be sending me such and so I can do this for you? And when I confronted saying, well, actually, like, you now trying to make me feel guilty for not sending you something when you actually had taken 3 months to do this, and I've been asking for, then it was like, well, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I've been doing something for you, and then obviously immediately I feel that same pain that you felt when you're being excluded without reason. You're hanging me over the phone, even if you don't want to talk to me ever again. You are hanging me over the phone in a horrible way, which you give an awful end to the potential of what we have created, which is unnecessarily, because most likely, the way things go, this is my pattern. You are not providing for me the things that I need, while I'm trying to show for you that the way I perceive that is bettering myself. So you can have an example, so you can be inspired. But when you treat me like that, I go straight back to my circle of where my emotions are dark and spiraling. And then I had to see my fuse coming up. Yeah. And then obviously I had to just really like go through the set of emotions. First, pain, anger, disappointment, over responsibility, feeling unworthy. So I had to revisit, this bag that I'm going to be carrying every day through my life, through those steps. And then again, I talked to my mom, and she obviously picked up immediately there was something that I wasn't saying. And then she's like, listen, you seen that you have to just kind of repair this part of you, putting relationship for what they are, putting them into perspective. Are they really this like something that you're going to carry? Are they really giving you what you want? Are they, and also, are you willing to accept that? And basically with Mom and I talk about you and I, and how she was saying, look, at least you guys did have a narrative, and this is maybe she put more focus in the fact that it's female. We explain reasons, we provide scenarios, we engage into what is our practice and our passion, because that's what I was saying to Mom. So the way I went through all these serpentines of emotions yesterday was, first I was really angry, I did say that that wasn't the right thing, whatever. Then I have to deal with my own personal pain, which is me going to that child inside me and say, okay, you know what? I'm here with you, and this is not the same as it happens before. And you and I had to walk out this garden, or this kindergarten, better say, because the other adult is not behaving, it's not giving you reason, and it's not my responsibility to get that, unless I'm not going to fess into that, because that's going to diminish my energy. And then if you can conciliate with that, to me, this happened faster now, but I also had to realize I've been so deeply hurt by someone that I truly trusted has betrayed me on this aspect. So I need to just realize that pain that has been caused need to be rebuilt as strength. So it's like, if you have an injury in your leg, now we're going to have to do some physiotherapy. So what's the physiotherapy I have to apply considering this thing? Is like, all right, you need to get out of that friend of mine, because, and then you had to exercise a better exit. So at the end, I decided to say, look, I'm sure we misunderstood each other. I was a bit like, probably I say things that would upset this person, which when I reflect, it wasn't my intention, but most likely because, the way I say, and I was angry, and then it's like, I went through all, like, I just, when I don't want to have any Instagram, and I don't, and then I'm like, oh my God, this is just a problem. And even if he doesn't want to come back to the repair, I offer that space, but I also need to move along and to recognize that if that person is not capable to do that, I can't really stop,
Yeah, and I think you're really bringing a very important point. It's just because the other person, because at the end of the day, whatever is happening on your side about that particular situation is happening on the other side too, right? Very likely the chances are that they maybe are not really looking at it. Oh, what did I bring into the situation? How can I repair it? How can I make it better? Right? Because that would obviously be a much nicer, like, that's why our relation was able to repair much quicker, because we both took our responsibilities on, like, well, I probably added something to this situation. Oftentimes our trained way is finding the fault in the other person, right? It's oftentimes like, well, you did this and you did this, and this is why I wasn't able to do this. And it's so, like, I see it all the time, like, even when it's jokingly, like, we make jokes, it's like, it was your fault, but, like, there is no joke behind this. It actually is something we are so used to not taking responsibility for our own actions. Just yesterday I had a meditation and I used the bong the wrong side, the stick. And so the wooden piece, obviously, when you hit it, is much louder. And when you're online, it probably hurts your ears much more. So I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry I take this, right? But I could have also said, like, the stick, like, why do they even have a wooden piece on the one side? Why don't they have just both sides being the valid things so that it doesn't, like, whatever, it doesn't matter. And I think oftentimes, and I don't know if you said this earlier today or last some other time, but about making mistakes. It's like we are so afraid, or we maybe are raised to not make mistakes. So when we did make mistakes, we were, like, maybe punished, or maybe we were, like, taught, like, how to make it right, not to acknowledge that, yes, it's okay, we all make mistakes. And I think this is something that leads into any relationship issues, to take responsibility. Because if I am not learning that mistakes are good, mistakes are okay, we need to make mistakes to have deeper connection. Now, talking about relationships or any other things that we're doing at work, whatever, we need to make mistakes to know what is going to work better. If everything would work out right at the get-go, we're not going to be successful people, because there is nothing for us to work on. And I don't think people in general understand the complexity of humans, and at the same time that's what we need to actually live a full life. We feel like we want to have stress-free life. We don't want to work. We don't want to do things. We want things just to come to us. But what would happen is that our bodies will probably die much sooner than we would want to, because there's nothing to work with. Our brains wouldn't be engaging. There wouldn't be new chemical reactions happening, new neural connection happening. Like, there's all these other parts of it that probably if we would just lay back and do nothing and have everything just come to us, we wouldn't be actually in conflict. I think conflict is a really healthy thing, which is actually mistakes are being made. So I know you
I
have
think
something you want to say to my neural connection thing.
it is again, bring a metaphor that people can see visually with what you are saying, which makes sense, but it sounds a bit apocalyptic.
Thank you.
Because actually this is zombie land, and this is where actually we are heading in a way, you know, like, again, I go back to, we have changed very time structures that have keep humans going in a social environment, in small families and wider communities. So this is a massive change, and we're taking the consequences. And as you were talking, I was thinking about the coral reef. And the coral reef is a place that does need that current tension, that needs temperature to stay, that needs, you know, it needs sharks to be coming there, like, you know, like fishes to eat the coral. It needs this sort of like constant struggle for the, you know, fishes have to go in and out, and this is what we call a stress. If the fishes are not stressed, if the coral is not being attacked and reproducing, if the currents are not happening and whatever, then what happens is that we are losing the coral reef, because what sustains it is a healthy level of stress and interactions. So I think what you wanted to say was something like that, in terms of like, we need to keep our mental elasticity and our relationship better, because this is not new, but it happened before. There used to be this idea that all the people become witches, or, you know, ogres, or, you know, like very difficult people. And that is precisely because eventually, like, we are naturally disconnected from our environment, but also in the past, at least, people were very much like, it's black and white. My kids have to come on Sunday. You know, there were certain things that they have to happen, and if it didn't happen, things were right or wrong, and then their lives would go better or not. So if we don't want to head that way much earlier in our livings, because we can retract to our own insular space before we become old age, then we need to just make the decision of, you know, having this and making the tension of the coral reef, or the tension in our minds, healthy enough to be sustained. If we enter all the time in conflicts, and, you know, and we get like drained by then, and they take the focus out of us and whatever, then we know that that has to be a market. This is kind of one of the aspects of things I'm working now, because I feel I don't have it, which is boundaries. What is my boundaries? I have limited time in my day, and I have people that come into my life to show me something about myself. I want to give them a chance for them and their interaction with me to shape me somehow, ideally in the positive. But if these people are passing my threshold of pressure, then I need to just be aware that there's another person farther down the line, and I'm going to have to hold the discomfort, like not trying to battle with this person. Because most likely the people that you will be willing to battle, which is your partner, your family, your kids, if you have it, you know, people that you are in practice with, or people that you feel a feedback. But if it's not going to be continuity in that relationship, and there's going to be conflict when the relationship happens, then we need to march away. We need to just I think for me, that's kind of like, all right, a boundary. You need to just learn to manifest your time and energy. And this is for me, and learning where is my current, where I'm going to be fine, where I'm going to be, like I say to mom, the relationships have changed so much. Much of our relationship is online. We never have seen each other. We never walk together. We never, like, so if you and I hang up this call and you don't give me a reason, and then we end up ghosting each other or not talking, we're creating a bit damage, because that's what she didn't understand. Oh, you only met this person for 6 months. Yeah, but I've been reporting with this person for 6 months, and actually I live on my own, and in a country where I have no family, I work on my own. And to me, even if it was, I'm aware that we entertain one another, maybe that's the most accessible relationship I have now, until I create relationship with people where I regularly see. That's why I go dancing. That's why but it's hard to put all those elements that you want and deal with the changes of weather, deal with your level of energy. So to me, it's becoming aware that we are describing something very personal for us, but very personal work that has to be passed to future generations. So I was talking to a dad, which is in the dating app. He's a single dad, have 2 kids, 5 and 10. I don't really know the circumstances of why he's single, and we don't know. Maybe he lost his partner, maybe whatever. And he's just kind of like, is there are times I need, intimacy, and I need someone to tell me I'm doing well, because it must be quite heavy to do work, kids, and doing that without any support, and having someone who go like well long, or someone who can take a little bit of the load. But he said, but what the way it translates to me is through wanting to have sex with someone. But that's not intimacy. That may feel like intimacy, but it's not what you need. And bringing that to your life open a lot of scenarios for you, for the other person, So having the awareness of what is it that we need, and then reconduct these conversations in where we can support one another, because I can only say to him, I see you, I hear you, I acknowledge you, we can't really think that that's the way. You can't have sex without intimacy, or at least good sex is not based in some level of intimacy. So we can't really start like trying to get, as you say, from the people what we want. And we have to create this space in where we plan for the things that in a season, while we are feeding this space and this bond, we may get some carrots.
And one thing that really sticks out to me in what you're describing is to have skilled communication skills. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of things we can say, and there is a million ways to say it. And I think it really comes down to one, obviously, what you just talked about, intimacy. What is intimacy to you? Like having these deeper conversations. I'm like, okay, what are we talking about? There is a word that is described in one way, but as a person, we always have a different way of describing things. And this is where I find lots of conflicts actually base out of, is that we just take that one word. For example, I was saying to this person that I don't think you appreciate the things that I do. And if I say that sentence, it was received as like, I don't appreciate anything that you do, which I didn't say. I maybe wasn't specific enough to say when I do X, Y, Z. But then it's not about just falling right in. It's like, that's not true. I am very grateful, right? That was the response. And I was like, I know you are. I never said you aren't. And maybe I wasn't able to finish my sentence. But what is really important is that when we hear something we don't like, or hear something that we disagree on, instead of right away responding to define what we're saying,
reacting.
yeah, reacting, it could be even responding. It doesn't actually matter. But for me, it's not about responding nor reacting. It's about asking clarifying questions. What do you mean I don't appreciate the things you do? Can you be more specific? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it takes two. It can't be just me who maybe is not having all the words to say. And that's another situation I was in. It was like, there was silence because there weren't the right word, the person didn't have the right words to say. But would you not rather have something being said that you then can explore and like move on to really get to what is really being said or meant? But that requires patience, that requires willingness, it requires time. So everyone has to be giving something to make it work. We can't just say like, well, you said that, I don't like what you said, and I'm out, I'm done. You know, I think there is more that needs to be
you are giving the tips of how we can turn the end of a conversation and actually a conversation with no end.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, because that's kind of like what we're saying is, what you are saying is for advanced practitioners. It requires first to establish that you are in a safe space with the person that you are talking. Because if you don't feel like that is, and we are not agreeing that this is it, that we love each other, that we care each other, that we are in conflict and we need to talk about this, and it may take us more than XY time to resolve it, then unfortunately the conditions are not there. So that's kind of like what secure bonds do look like, you know. That's kind of like how unconditional love happened. And it doesn't mean that you had to take all the crap of like everyone else. But for example, I make a decision for one of my longest term friend, which most likely has always behaved in the same way. And I have accepted on the past, but now I don't really like that kind of relationships. I don't really like that kind of love. I don't really feel like, you know, I can come with this person and I don't want to recreate this space in where before I was doing all the work. And, you know, that's so in a way I had to let go that person from the very special place of it's my best friend from high school. And now bringing into like, it's my oldest friend. And that doesn't mean I don't synchrony with her at all, but I don't have to make the decision of not take it completely out. I know that she wants to be in my life somehow, and I'm going to explore that from a different angle without wanting to jump into the reasoning or not. That's not for me. That relationship is not the safe space to do that, you know. But I'm not rejecting it because I agree with myself that this long relationship that, but I also want to exercise more so now of closing doors. And this is again, I go back. Dating is amazing because you know there are people you have flow conversations with people we know. So it's actually for me to have enough self-esteem, which again, I was talking to my mom like how much ghosting, which is exactly what you are describing, is the end effect of someone abruptly cutting out communication, feeling completely reacting, not hearing or having any interest to hear the other person, and not feeling like they can express themselves or they're even going to try. So these are facts of life. These are maneuvers of people. And it happens. We got lots of conflict. Why conflict ended in words? Because we are actually like turning our heads to something that is not convenient until like, you know, it jump into our face and then we want to bring the volume up, you know? Yeah. But it's happening in all areas. And yeah, it's important that you actually, for me, just to say, no, I want to go a step farther, and I cannot do if I try to pull everyone, but I can do it with this and this person. I can do it by speaking to you. I can do it by speaking to the people that may want to listen to us. I can do by engaging with people that my coaching clients. So, that I have a safe frame to do that. If we don't have a safe frame, then we need to just really start realizing that for ourselves and start headbutting the conversation, maybe.
Yeah, but first, I think, and also like bring it back, like you and me, we probably practiced enough to know what is safe for me or not. Most of the time, I don't think we know what it means to be feeling safe, because sometimes it could be home and it technically is the safest place, but then depending on the conversation, it becomes very unsafe. Right. And so to navigate through those spaces where we technically speaking feeling safe and it switches to unsafety, and how do I, then cope with that I can't just walk away because it's my home, for example. Right. And so in that particular situation I was talking about, it was interesting you described it, because it was in fact not a safe space to have this conversation. I don't know if the person ever felt safe in period, but no matter what, I wouldn't let it just be sitting like that, because there is a relationship that is a long-term relationship that I am not, I'm not in it like a partner, but still it's family, right? That I wouldn't just let go like that. And that was the incentive. The message was let it go. Just let it go. And I found it interesting because sometimes, yes, letting go, like you said earlier, is the only solution. But depending on what that relationship is, letting go is not an option, because if you just let it go for the sake of this moment, to just think, I am a strong believer that there will be future moments that will come up again. And even if it's only one person that is taking something away, that is my job now because I made it unsafe. It's my job now for the future because I know now what is making this person feel unsafe, or rather didn't like what was going on. I can now be more aware of how I operate in these moments. I might be more careful these times. I maybe choose my words more wisely. I might not, jump into some conversation that I thought this person will be willing to get into. So I think it really is something to not to stay so strong-minded and like, this is who I am, like when you talked about boundaries, like to just make it stick so hard.
Boundaries are there to first make you feel safe.
No, I get it. What I'm saying
I
is,
didn't talk about boundaries, and I'm talking from a person who doesn't have boundaries, because I think
yes,
a lot of my problematic is that I don't have boundaries, and then by the time that my boundaries have been all completely crossed, most likely I will have like a very fiery like response that will make things even worse. And that's like a past behavior from where I have very hard been growing and practicing to get out of it. So when I'm talking now about these new boundaries, it's about boundaries about, okay, so how do I learn as another woman to invest in relationships where I can keep myself safe, and the safety in there, because it's a bond. So for example, now we're going to talk about, you put the example of the house. Family is the first place of conflict. Again, I say at the beginning, life is discomfort. It's not comfortable. Yeah, we are two questions to have all the time in any kind of relationship, regularly, schedule. What have I done that has pissed you off lately? How I'm making you angry?
now you, me.
No. This is one of the questions that we should be asking. we should be asking each other, because we are going to annoy each other. If we are in our regular day lives,
Relationship. Yeah.
we are
I
going to
see.
be
Yeah,
annoying
I get
each
it.
other. So that's the first question. The second question is like, what have I done of the way I reacted with all the things that they already annoy you that may have scared you? Okay, because there are things that on my behavior that you may not understand, and they make you feel unsafe, and they make you actually wanted to have a reactivity towards me, and then this is how the problems of the relationship are more or less going to be the same always through life. You know, in a way, with the, you know, with the people, unless we all get in practice, but we get over the problems. But these are the two things. These questions have to work both ways. I ask you, you tell me, you ask me, I tell you. And then we are building a rapport of safety. And then that's the first phase. And this is also, for example, in the space of like, I'm talking about a person that I love, is a father, is completely, you know, like providing for him, the child, the mother, the brother, the family, you know, all these elements which, you know, make him amazing, but like he's actually taking too much, and we're trying to create a space where either he feels super proud of that or he manages that workload better. His relationship is chaos. This person that is the mother of the child is not capable to even put the child into nursery, or less waking up in the morning, or hold a job, or doing anything like that. Now we have the perfect scenario that you say. He can't really leave that because he want to be with his child. He doesn't want to destroy this family unit, which we know is functional and functional at times. It's not always bad, but we're not really going to be able to do work in this other person. We can do work, or I can support this person doing work together. But in the other situation, is completely out of control. But this is kind of like his space. This is kind of like his, and the way I explained it was like a little bit of single where we have a game. It's a game, okay? So in America, so we have a game, and we have to have a ball, and we have to put the goal in the mark. So that means that we have things to do in the day for us to just feel that. But we need to protect that ball however we can. If we are in a situation where the game is crazy and you have all the things that you're not control, you need to just focus here and move as far as you can in the yards with awareness of where you are heading. And this is the way you protect the long-term bond, by making small changes that support your own safety in that relationship, that keep you a player, that it doesn't turn you into a passive element of your life and the life of others.
Yes. Yes. Now, I mean, yeah, I have nothing to say about this. I mean, it really is a trial and error. There is not one way works all. I think it really is something that I found. So that's why I love conflict. I do love conflict because it asks me to think outside of myself. Over the years, I really believe I trained myself to not take things personally in what people are saying, not working all the time, you know, but sometimes it's also because of the nuances, how someone is saying something and how we're receiving something when our intentions were good and what they're saying is not matching our good intentions, right? And that's when that falls into. But then when we take a step back, just a breath, take a breath, we start realizing that what they're saying is just what they are saying. It isn't really about us, right? And I think this is something that I really wanted to always tell myself. It's like, it's not about me. But sometimes the conflict is happening because the other person thinks it's about them, and they're not recognizing that what you just said had nothing to do with them. It had something to do that you wanted to say, that you wanted to do because of something that you want to do, unrelated to this other person. And I find it so interesting that when people are unable to hear you, like you said before, like all I can do is just hear you, see you, acknowledge you. But if you can't do that, that is a setup for conflict. Like right there. Because if you hear something and you don't like it, before you even do anything, just hear, see, and acknowledge them. By just doing that, you're already taking yourself out of it. It's not
we
about
had
you,
to just,
you know?
we had to be aware that for me, like my route to into psychology, I think it started really early in my life to make sense about my environment. I'm a qualified yoga student, so I create a connection with my body. I actually I'm a coach and a life book leader. I have worked these things. I have done the work pre that. I meditate. I look at my life like my practice, and I'm capable, hopefully, and I make a decision to dance between the nonsense of me trying to find new relationships, and then in relationship with this identity I now have, which is, so basically I have this identity where I can just say to someone, I can have a conversation with someone. I cannot go like, you could be really offended if someone say, "Oh, I just want sex," and you're, "Oh my God, how dare you?" But like the thing is like, okay, what I see here is like, for example, with dating apps, I think these are ways of having conversations with people you will not have otherwise. I spoke with this gentleman called Mo. He was a doctor, and we were ended talking about healing and healing through the body, and healing through even his life. He was a Muslim, grow up to a Muslim. He couldn't really believe about things like healing, astrology things. We have a lovely conversation about that, in where we both throw light to our lives, and there will be nothing coming out of that, because it just doesn't have to. But that conversation has give us a connection to something that connect with us. So then it's starting, then instead of like seeing people for the outcome that you can get from there, turning around for this reference of saying, hey, I'm hearing and seeing and acknowledging someone else different, which is part of what will increase my quality of life. Because if I keep talking always with the same people, and on top of that I keep always revisiting the same conflict with the same people, and then I'm not bringing anything new to my life, then my coral reef started to be a bit intoxicated. Well, too many starfishes around there eating stuff, and I'm not really bringing that healthy space where I can exercise. Because obviously it's going to be very different to have a conversation with someone that you don't know about, like things like potentially intimacy, having sex, whatever, than if you have to talk about these things with the person you've been married for 20 years.
Yes, and I think
this
yes,
is the gym.
yeah.
The new person is the gym. This is where you go, and then you practice, because there's not that much in stake. And the long-term relationships is the PhD.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that I'm getting close to my PhD at this point. Very, very happy. I mean, I'm only not married 20 years yet, but we've been together for 20 years this month, in a week from now. So, I consider myself close. Yeah.
But that's what I mean. Is like there's long-term relationships that will continue through our lives, even if the circumstances of that long-term relationship are horrible. We have an abusive mother. We have a dysfunctional father. We have an alcoholic brother, or an avoidant partner. We have some of them we haven't chose, some of them we have chose, but these are the long-term relationship where we go, and we need to work in the safety that for as long as we think this relationship will prolong, we'll have to keep trying. I was married, and even if everything around me did look like it wasn't right, the context of me being married, the vow that I have made to this person, pushed me to keep trying, which actually was a limiting belief imposed to me by society, where I deny my right to have my basic needs. So I was creating my own unsafety. And that's what I'm saying. It's a dance between, it's a dance for the fish that had to go and, go from there to capture some food and take the risk of like, is there any shark around, and could I die if I go out? So this is kind of like, it's important that how many of the things we're doing in the long-term relationship are actually limiting ourselves, and
Yeah,
can we
because that's exactly, I mean, in some way, I would also consider the long-term relationship to be the gym, because sometimes we need to re-practice and practice and practice until it actually,
is the program, is the
yes,
program, is the
yeah,
fitness program,
exactly.
it's a fitness program. Going and exercising, good morning with your neighbors, with the people that you find, with this is the, is the fun part of the gym. It's
Yeah.
like
But
I
I
have
think what really is standing out for me, what you said at the end, is that we don't become lazy and negligence of the relationship. Just because we've been together for 20 years doesn't mean, like, we actually need to work even more to make it novel, to make it special, to make it something I want to spend another 20, 30, 40 years in, right? I mean, not to make it like, yeah, we're in it, we're doing it, it's working, it's good, like, no, I want it to be great. I want it to be awesome. I want it to be, and not all the time. I'm not saying like every day you have to wake up and like scream, I love you, and be like butterflies. Like, I mean, it would be nice, but at the same time, this is a lot of energy sometimes.
you have to do that for yourself. I think
That's
like
right.
I think this is really important. Like, observe your morning routine. What do you wake up with? If you're already waking like, oh my God, like like I don't have the energy today, like this and that, or oh, it's so cold outside, and you are constantly hearing this sound, you're gonna bring joy into yourself, then forget it about like, then you're making the other person responsible to bring you joy. If
I
you can.
think before we even go deeper into this, because I do believe this deserves a whole hour for itself, because what I really, and especially because we already getting to the end of today's session, because what I really, or talk, what I'm really recognizing as you're bringing this up is the only way a relationship can work is if you work by yourself on its own. And I know we talked about this at the beginning of this, and obviously because we're talking about relationships due to our relationship, but I think this is a good moment to go into our next conversation around how do I show up for myself every single day, because that is the thing, right? The relationship, that's kind of like, yeah, there are moments that we're going to make special, but you are always going to wake up, or I always wake up with excitement. It's like, oh, I can now meditate. Let me get up earlier so I get more time to meditate and write and read before I have to do the breakfast and the things that need to have a timely manner to it, where it's not as fluid, right? It's some things in life that are just what they are. There's nothing to fool around. I can't send my son at 9 o'clock to school when school starts at 7:30, right? So to have, this is part of life too. There are some things that can be more chaotic. There are some things that have rigidity, and we have to find a way to integrate them together so that we can have both. We can have fun while there is seriousness. We can be sad while we can be happy. We can be down while we are up. We can be together while we be separate. And that's all these opposing things that can happen only if we, as you started our conversation today, unconditionally loving ourselves for all the things that are coming our way, that maybe tomorrow I'll wake up not as excited, and yet I can find things that will bring me joy. that make me go outside,
And
right?
then looking back at me, for me to build that frame, I'm looking at the last 10 years of work that I've been doing on myself. And I throw myself into a new career, which I think that's how we met, which was the Mind Valley, the COVID, like the self-development. These things were really reserved for people that were keen or whatever. They were prepped for certain things, or for VCEOs, or for, like now is more at the hand of someone on the high street. And what we are talking is something about like a very spiritual thing. We're talking about dualities, and the mission of life is to find balance. And that balance starts by you discovering your polarities and try to keep them as much in that space that is neutral enough so you can feel joy with what is going on.
Yeah.
I think we're done.
Done for the day.
Yeah, I think we hopefully, as I say, it's not an easy, it's something that we are describing. I think I want people to be very aware that this is to be exciting work, that things have changed. There's like we have the bandage of family, long-term relationship, idealization of things, like even know who you want to be for the rest of your life taken away. And this is the time where we are going to be very uncomfortable, but we need to all become aware and know that, we need to continue being neighbors and, lovers and co-workers and things. And if we pay a bit of attention, we'll do the bit that we can do for this generation, our generation, to help support the health mentally and physically, the people that surround us that we love. Amen.
That's right. Amen.
Okay. Till next week.
Thank you so much, Eva. This was great.
Bye.